is a significant wealth gap that's emerging, and I think growing greater every single day. And it's a disturbing trend to many people. Other people say it's just a natural way of things. How are you seeing this?
I think there's a big misunderstanding of what the gap actually is. You know, there's all these reports that constantly come out about how the top 1% owns so much of the world's wealth, without realizing that this gap isn't about a pie where because someone's got the pie, you don't have the pie, right? The wealth in the world is always growing, right? Like my son with his Fibonacci blocks, you know, Luke didn't take money from anybody, right? It's like he was creating new value that wasn't there before.
Right.
So the way I see the gap is it's a little bit more like, you know, if you and I went for a run and there was a race going on, one of us would beat the other one, and that gap would be just the difference between what you have and what I have, right? If you happen to get on a bicycle because you figured out there was a way to get there faster, and I wasn't even thinking of a better way, I wouldn't go any faster, and the gap suddenly gets bigger, right? And if that bicycle becomes a car, and then you then upgrade to a rocket ship, and you get, look, if I have a better vehicle, right, I'm going to be able to get much further than I could before. And you're not even trying to beat me, you're just beating yourself.
Right.
I mean, that's what Mark Zuckerberg did. That's what Jeff Bezos did. It's what Elon Musk is doing. They're just finding smarter and smarter business models that allows them to go faster and further than they did before. Someone who's in a job or someone who isn't thinking in that way, they're just running, right? They're just using their own energy, their own time. And of course, that means the gap gets bigger because what they then can earn in a day is totally different from someone who's actually got vehicles and mechanisms to add a lot more value with a lot more people to be able to get there a lot faster. And so, like, I shouldn't complain and try and knock you off your car or motorbike in order for me to feel better about you going slower. I should just say, well, I can learn how to also get the motorbike, or and there's plenty. There's enough motorbikes for everybody, right? There's enough planes for everybody,
right.
And I really believe that today there's enough even education available for people to understand how to fly.
Right.
It's just that most people aren't aware of it, or they're too busy kind of running to even stop and actually say, wait, let me just take the time to fly and start that business or that investment vehicle. Because everyone who's actually most successful, the Richard Bransons of the world, they write it down. They're telling us how to do it.
Right.
And so that's where we're living in a world today, which we weren't living in quite the same way 50 years ago. So there's a real advantage today, but you have to take it.
Well, it's interesting. Your analogies are really good because what's encouraged in a free market is for people to figure out a bicycle, then a car, then a rocket ship, what have you. In oppressive type economic environments or political environments, pretty much it's like, hey, get off your bike and start walking again. You know, you can't go that far out ahead. It's not permitted. It's not allowed. It's shared misery in a sense. So, you got to move as slow as everybody else. Maybe a little bit faster is okay, but you can't just get on a bike or get in a car. And that basically forces everybody down, right? It doesn't allow emergence of better quality of life.
Well, in the case of entrepreneurship, it's actually almost the opposite. I mean, if you go to Africa, if you go to China, India, you're seeing a much, much faster rate of growth in entrepreneurship than you see in America.
Only because the environment around is allowing it now, whereas maybe some years ago it didn't, right?
Yes and no, because I think there's always an alignment between value creation, which is where entrepreneurs start showing up, and even in dictatorships, even in oppressive societies, they still are looking for everyone to be as productive as possible, right? And so if someone actually is able to start a business in some way, and that then actually helps the government, right? It takes people into jobs and so on, then they're not going to be against it necessarily. So I think there are a lot of things that, such as free speech and so on, which are the kind of things that government's going to be more focused at. And as long as the government's getting paid and they're getting their taxes, right, they're going to be continuing to move on. But I think that today, there is less of an excuse than ever, really in any country, for someone to say, the reason I can't be successful is because of the government or because of large corporations or because of the weather, right? Like there is less excuses available today than ever. And I think that's a really, really important thing because it's the easiest thing if you have the wrong mindset to put in the way of success.
Yeah, I agree. I think, probably ever since the end of the Cold War, that's where we started to see that things started emerging. I mean, the fact that China started becoming more and more productive, and what they've become is an economic superpower now, because people individually can benefit from their success, as compared to saying we're going to take it all from you and it gets recirculated and everybody has to have the same income. So now I guess is a great time to be an entrepreneur, right?
I think it's an amazing time, and I'd say that the bigger thing that I think generally stops people from the idea of going out and being financially successful, even more so than the government or anything external there, is their own belief that making money in some way is evil, or in some way is the opposite of making a difference. It's like profit and purpose don't go hand in hand. And there was a lot of reason for people to think that 20 years ago, right? Because the whole basis of running a business was it was there for the shareholders, for the people that wanted you to make profit. So how could you go and make a difference if you had to go and make all the shareholders happy? Now, all around the world, we've seen this massive trend towards social entrepreneurship, towards, like social corporate responsibility, where even the biggest companies in the world now are saying, actually, we can link purpose and profit together, right? We can make income, we can make impact. And in fact, because we have so many conscious people who are consumers now, who would much rather eat healthy food, or have more responsible healthcare, or are going to make sure that they're only going to be working with companies that are making a difference for the environment, right? That because there are so many people now saying that's the company we want to actually be going for, then we'd much rather work with them. Jeff Bezos says, there's only two kinds of entrepreneurs in the world. There's missionaries and mercenaries. And the irony, missionaries are the ones who do it for the mission, mercenaries do it for the money. And the irony today is that it's actually the missionaries that make the most money, right? It's possible to do both at the same time. So anyone who's still got that excuse, which is like, no, like making money means that I'm not being meaningful, or it means that I'm not making a difference, they can't have that excuse anymore, because the reality is the best way to make a difference is to be doing it in a way where you're truly delivering value to as many people as possible.
Yeah, and that really is in a true free market, where there's not any type of manipulation of that marketplace. Then in the end, that's what it is. Basically, the more people you bring value to, the more money you make. And it's kind of a simple justice, isn't it? The people who do the most good should get the most reward. It's kind of like that simple.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there is a fear that many people have, which is that either they're not good enough, right? Or that someone else is already doing it, so why even bother? Without realizing there's 7 billion people on the planet today, right? And there's always someone somewhere who has a problem they want solved. And if you can show yourself to care enough about them to want to solve their problem for them, there's always money there for you. There's always a job to be created. And once you understand that and get that, the concept of the lack feeling that you have, which is like, oh my gosh, there's not enough, really goes away. And it's easier said than done. But if you surround yourself with other entrepreneurs, if you go into entrepreneur environments, and we have them all over the world, right? And when people show up there, they're like, like finally, I don't have to be spending all my time in fear or worry, because there's an actual way here that I can always make sure that I've always got enough, right?